Kevin Durant comes up to me at the club and says, yo, don't you ever compare me to Giannis again. Don't you ever do that. I was like, Kev, what are you talking about? Calm down. First off, I'm talking about scenarios, like stylistically, the way you guys play a little bit, size, length. He's like, nah, don't ever compare that dude to me. Don't do it. I felt that in his voice at that moment, that when this matchup came up, I'm like, oh, this is a proven moment opportunity for Kevin to show everybody he's not on the same page with me.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of the most humble and laid-back superstars we've ever seen in the NBA, as very rarely does he trash talk or take jabs at players in the media. As for Giannis, he'd rather settle it on the court, dropping 40 and getting the W. Now, even with Giannis keeping his head down, there's a lot of current-day superstars, even past NBA players, who take shots at Giannis constantly, critiquing his game and flat-out hating, from someone like Gilbert Arenas all the way down to Andre Iguodala. And when it comes to being the best player in the world, in my opinion, Giannis is that dude and he wears that crown. But for someone like Kevin Durant, also an NBA superstar, he might object and have something to say.
Your Honor, I object!
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case!
As in a little-known clip that did not go viral, back in 2021, according to Jay Williams, a longtime friend of Kevin Durant, as well as business partner, KD told him straight up, don't ever compare me to Giannis. That is a very profound statement from Kevin Durant that went under the radar and was underreported on. And to give you guys some context, when KD made those comments, he 100% had a right to feel that way about Giannis, as in his career, he was 13-2 versus the guy, and in the playoffs was up 2-0. Now, I don't know if it was a jinx or karma or whatever, but after that statement on June 9th, Giannis' Bucks would win 4 out of 5 games with him playing fantastic, averaging 34 points, 14 boards, 3 assists on 57% shooting with a plus-minus of 54. And to be fair to KD, he was also fantastic, averaging 37 points, 12 boards, on 48% shooting with a plus-minus of negative 52. And of course, you guys know in Game 7, in overtime, KD folded and Giannis had some big-time buckets. And once again, I do want to reiterate, after KD's comments went public, since that date, Giannis has dominated him, having a 10-1 record, including 6 straight wins.
That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
And going more in depth, looking at their overall stats in those matchups, when it comes to 30-point games, KD has 8 to Giannis' 11. Looking at 40-point games, KD only has 2 to Giannis' 4. And last but not least, looking at double-doubles, Giannis has 9 compared to KD with only 5. Quite literally, you cannot overstate this. Giannis over the past year and a half has destroyed Kevin Durant when it comes to points, rebounds, blocks, shooting percentage, and especially wins and getting W's. And it is kind of funny to think, KD's comments on June 9th really changed NBA history. As Giannis that postseason, he would go on to win the championship, and KD would flame out in that Game 7, and the next year, losing the first round. Since those comments, the Greek Freak has only ascended, and KD has plateaued, if not declined, in most NBA fans' minds. And from an all-time career perspective, looking at Giannis versus KD, on head-to-head matchups, Giannis currently is the only active player in the NBA who averages more points versus Kevin Durant. Not Steph Curry, not LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, any of those superstars. And look, don't get me wrong, KD is still a phenomenal player in the top 1% of all superstars, as he can still drop 30 in his sleep, and being 7 foot tall makes him unguardable and his shot nearly unblockable. With that being said, watching his overall game, he doesn't have the burst of 2014 KD or the defensive skills of 2017 KD. He's still a top 3 player in my mind, at the worst top 5, but comparing him and Giannis, the overall gap is only widening the older he gets.
Future's now, old man.
And staying with KD for 1 second, he had some very recent comments saying Ja Morant is the future of the NBA and basically crowning him as the next great superstar. Now look, Ja, he is a great player, has a great future, and is only 23. But when it comes to being the future of the NBA, I don't see that in his future. As looking at someone like Giannis, who's only 27, barely 4 years older than Ja, at this point, he's more accomplished and flat out better on both ends of the floor. And using very simple math, he's going to run the NBA to at least 2030, which by that time Ja will be 30 going on 31. From a purely objective standpoint, I don't see any point where Ja Morant is the guy and the best player in the world. And going full circle in this video, isn't it kind of funny how superstars, NBA players, they'll pick the next superstar, they'll crown them if they like them and their overall play style. As for someone like Giannis, he isn't exciting or flashy, and his overall game is pretty methodical. You very rarely, if ever, I don't think I ever have, hear a top 5 or top 10 player say Giannis is this next great player who's going to be top 10 all time. As much like NBA fans, we like watching players have great handles, they're flashy, can pull from 40, or hit fadeaway jumpers. Unfortunately for Giannis, his playstyle isn't the most appealing, and for most fans, they don't find it exciting or exhilarating. And speaking in the general sense, when it comes to NBA fans as a whole, I think that lone fact clouded our judgment with Giannis and his overall ranking among NBA players. And compared to someone like KD, of course, he isn't nearly as skilled. When it comes to playing basketball on the court, back in 2021, they were neck and neck, despite the gap in skill. And since that moment, as I told you guys, the Greek Freak has only ascended, and KD has marginally improved. Now, to wrap this video up, let's look at Giannis and his Bucks team this season. As right now, they're atop the Eastern Conference, minus Chris Middleton, one big fact the detractors do not want to acknowledge. And I know it is still very early, but watching Giannis play, something about him seems different. He seems more driven, more focused, and overall more improved from last year. And if you know anything about Giannis' prime, every single year he's gotten better in one aspect or another. Whether it be shooting, the mid-range game, post-up game, leadership, IQ, every year he improves in something and gets better in one respect or another. And I know for Giannis, winning MVP, that is secondary to winning championships. But right now, seeing him play 34 minutes, averaging 35 points, 15 boards, a couple assists, I don't see any world where Giannis isn't at least top 3 in MVP voting. And what I'm really hoping for and anticipating is a Luka vs Giannis MVP race that goes down to the wire, as both these guys put up monster stats, and hopefully both their teams have successful seasons. Now, with that being said, looking at this video, once again I find it fascinating, after KD made those comments, basically calling out Giannis and people who compare the two, it's been downhill for him and nothing but success for the Greek Freak. And I want to hammer home this last point. When comparing two basketball players, yes, skill does matter, but at the end of the day, you have to evaluate what they do, what they put up, and their overall production. At this point, Giannis, when it comes to scoring the basketball, is on par with KD. Passing and playmaking is about dead even. Defense is Giannis by a mile, and shot blocking and rebounding is also Giannis by a pretty healthy margin. So once again, Giannis, he's the best player. He kept his head down, kept on trucking, and at the end of the day, we're one of the best players in NBA history. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.